What's up guys, Chris here from Mainely Mesh. Today I am going to be bringing you the review of the new STX Omega headline, starting with the STX Stallion Omega. Before I get into this, we have to introduce the term super plastics. There are two companies that have introduced what I'm calling super plastics because I felt like we needed some way to differentiate the old standard plastics from the new super durable kind. Essentially before this, all heads out on the market were designed out of the same plastic within a small spectrum of variants. And the only difference in longevity was from engineering tweaks, whether it was the sidewall strut cross section, how many struts you had, you name it. That was the biggest difference. First came the ECD Weapon X, which used their new flex form plastic. It was an interesting way of ECD kind of bringing that technology to the market without advertising it as such. Greg Renlian said the Weapon X was the first face-off head he ever used for an entire season, which was crazy. This was after the point though. In the meantime, ECD came out with the DNA, which was their first non-warp head. The biggest drawback to that technology for ECD was the weight. So the DNA is something like 6.2 ounces, I can't remember exactly, but it's a pretty hefty option. So it wasn't something I was gonna use on a short stick by any means. The Weapon X was 5.9 ounces. Keep in mind it has the little throat insert thing. But yeah, that was the biggest drawback. Yes, it didn't really warp. I called the ECD DNA the best LSM option available, defensive option available, but I wasn't gonna use it on a short stick anytime soon. Bring in the Stallion Omega. STX's super plastic is also, I'm just using a rule of thumb, is twice as durable. It's very durable. I haven't seen an image of these that are very warped at all, which is wild. The Stallion used to have a good amount of warp over time. But this plastic is way less dense. This Stallion is just about the same exact weight as the original Stallion 700. Now, per usual, I weighed this head, forgot what the weight was while I was getting distracted by stringing it, and tried to hit up my boy Trice from Sports Stop, but hasn't done his in-depth review. How dare he? I use Trice as a crutch all the time. If you guys haven't subscribed to Sports Stop yet, he does really in-depth reviews on pretty much every product that comes to their door. They also do lightning reviews too, and they typically upload them faster than I do. So check out Sports Stop's YouTube. If I remember correctly, this head was around 4.9, 4.95 ounces. So it is just as light as their original model. Might have been 5.1. I can't remember. All I remember was that it was more or less the same weight as their old model head, which totally took me by surprise. So now we've got a super plastic in the ultralight range, not ultralight, in the light range. Well, now we have to talk about the cost because that's the biggest difference here. I'm gonna break it down for you. I just wanna touch on the aesthetic details and other little additional details to do my due diligence first. So let's get into the nitty gritty. STX added, well, I guess the last one had this, the speed scoop technology. They added the little channel lock from the Ultra Power. I've never been a fan of this, but it's there if you guys like it. The speed scoop is awesome, one of my favorite scoops. Also protects those top strings very well. Basically same number of sidewall holes, which means it's gonna string up the same pattern you've been used to using. This head has a very different aesthetic from the previous Stallion, in my opinion. STX has been introducing these kind of long, curved shapes. They kind of previewed it in a more angular way with the Nike Alpha heads. Not the Alpha, what was it? Whatever the new Nike heads are. This has a dual benefit of being an aesthetic touch, and I believe also improves the stiffness. Basically, the wider the cross section, the stiffer it's gonna be. So they just kind of have these thin struts that help it maintain its stiffness and rigidity in both components. Does provide an interesting aesthetic down at the bottom where it looks like it's a beefy head. If you notice it from the side, though, it's actually cut pretty thin. STX always does a great job with the little aesthetic touches, whether it's the dimpling down here, the kind of speed form up here. They've got a little more dimpling up there. And they also have this little crosshatch pattern that I believe ECD started doing originally. They just always nail the matte gloss combination. They also added these little ridges for those of you who string to the inside, and two screw holes. And of course the leather ball stop. It's one of those things I actually like that a lot. Stiffnicity, it's fine. Price, 120 bucks. Now let's do a quick walk down memory lane. Everybody just exits out of the video. The highest price before this for a lacrosse head that wasn't like some crazy limited edition, I'm not even gonna include the graphene, or the OG Blade remake. STX back in the day tried 110, didn't work out so well for them. Some companies have tried 100, works okay. 120 bucks. As someone who always advocates for lower prices, this isn't my favorite number. With a good stringing, you are potentially looking at almost a $300 stick, including a nice shaft, if you are looking at like the upper range. And that's just for a short stick, right? You could easily be pushing almost $400 for a deep hole, which it's too much money. But if you're an advanced player, for me, like, so I use the Z1, easily go through 2 or 3 of those a season, right? Now, I am spoiled in terms of I get free product a lot or have access to cheaper product, so I can afford to do that at a way that isn't breaking the bank. If I'm buying those heads at retail, let's say I use 3 in a season, 270 bucks, unstrung. The Stallion is a bit stockier of a profile, but I could easily see kids going through 2 Stallions in a season. So if you are an advanced player, you want your head to be as consistent as possible, and you know that you are typically going through 2 heads a season, you're obviously saving money here, right? 2 Stallion 700s, 180 bucks unstrung versus 1 Stallion Omega at 120, you're saving money. I should stop literally looking at it on the ground from where I threw it. I should probably just go pick it up. So yeah, this is a tricky argument. I think it's an easier argument to make for the Stallion Omega than it is for the Hammer. If you guys want to check out the Hammer video, I won't throw it in here, otherwise this video would have been way too long. It'll be in the next video I upload. Basically what I'm saying is, if you have used and enjoyed the Stallion 700, get it. Might be the last head you ever buy. I haven't seen how long it takes for these to wear down completely. I'm not sure they've been around long enough for us to see what that point is. So yeah, if your Stallion 700 is a little warped, a little used, I would snag one of these guys and hope that it's the last one I use. I don't like changing heads unless I have to. There's no time at which I am wanting to buy a new head just for the heck of it. If I had a head that lasted forever, I would use it. And for me, I am all about just getting reps in with the same product for as long as possible to build that consistent muscle memory. If I had a Z1 equivalent of this, I would use it. Personally, I don't like that mid-high pocket, so it's literally the only reason why I wouldn't be using a head like this. And to complement this even more, I was like, maybe I could come around to this and get used to it, but not quite. I'm too old. If I'm using, let's say, a String King Mark IIA, should I switch to this? I don't know. I mean, once again, you'd have to get used to the new pocket placement and stuff. So I don't necessarily advocate this as being like, oh, this is gonna be my first nice stick. I would stick to this as being like, okay, I know what I like this profile, I want a head that's gonna last. It's just interesting. I'm hesitant telling people to spend $120 on a head, but if it lasts that long, like, it's just math. You are winning in the long run. So that's really all I have to say about this. Kudos to STX for pushing the limit. STX is back in a big way, and I think this really solidifies their place back in the market. There was a time where I thought they were trending towards gimmicky. I think their new marketing has been great. Troy's done a great job. But thanks to them for sending this guy over. If you have any questions, comments, you know the deal. Like, comment, subscribe. Thanks so much. Catch you guys next time.